Wrestling World Championships, it's still ongoing, but you guys understand, you must understand from my perspective, it generally, and I know it moves all over the world, but generally, for where I'm at, Pacific Coast time, 3 a.m. Generally. It's been 3:30, it's been 4, but right in there. This one, 1:45 in the morning. Now, I'm a night owl. I can't force myself to go to sleep. So when I tell you I haven't slept in 4 days, that's an exaggeration. I have slept every single day, but it's not much. I mean, an hour here, hour 20 there. I keep my son home from school today to watch Dake versus Sidikov. And my plan is to take him in late because I get an announcement that it's going to be 9 a.m. my time. The round is going to start at 7:45. We're going to have a little bit to build, but we're going to roll right into this. And it did. Everything went as scheduled. What I didn't take into consideration is they used Dake for the main event, just meaning he went last. So it's now past noon. My son's over in the corner. My daughter goes to the same school, so she's not getting out of the car. If brother doesn't have to. All right, here we are. And I actually appreciate that. In 1988, you know, all houses have rules. And frankly, we probably have really close to the same rules, but there's some that aren't going to bend on. There's some that you know to not break for whatever reason. And there's only a few like that. But one of them in my house is when you go to bed, it's when it's bedtime, it's bedtime. Oh, by the way, you don't get out. You don't come up. So I'm in the 6th grade, but I'm Pavlov's dog. I'm trained on this. My dad comes and gets me up. That had never happened before. Takes me to his bedroom, which is where the TV is. And it was just a little small television to watch this young man wearing taped up root singlets wrestle in the semifinals. His name was John Smith. My dad gets me up the following day. That was the semifinals to watch John Smith wrestle for the gold medal. It's the only days that I went to bed and was allowed to get out. I wanted my son to have that memory. So I keep him home from school, right? Because we're going to watch Dake. Well, we end up watching all this great wrestling. And before I get to Dake, let me just back up and try to go in order. So we start with Zane Richards. Now, Zane Richards can do anything, and we don't know what that's going to be. We know it's anything. To make the team twice in one day, he beat the world champion. To make the team twice in one day, that very world champion was the reigning, most recent Olympics bronze medalist and was this close from winning. So we know Zane can pull some stuff up, but, you know, it's an interesting bracket. Turns out Zane's greatest competition was a fellow American, or at least an American wrestler from Michigan, who represented Serbia. So that's Micic for you wrestling fans. So Zane ends up getting beaten. That guy gets beaten. The way the new brackets are, you get eliminated. You lose, the guy that beat you must go all the way to the finals. He must win that side of the bracket that you're on for you to be pulled back in to even have a shot to come through the backside, which they call repechage, which is just annoying. I have no idea why wrestling in America has conceded to French words. It's weird. Parterre and rouge, and it's just weird. But at any rate, so that's Zane's story. Wish I had a little bit more, but that's it. So then you have Vito. And Vito was not expected to do as well as he did. Vito's just young. I've heard from some people he's got another year left of college. I can't confirm that because he's been there since 1908, but I'm hearing from people he's still got a year left of college. And even if he doesn't, he was the NCAA champion this year, which, by the way, in the semifinals, he beat a world silver medalist. Like, we know he's one of the top guys. But when he comes through and makes the team, he's got to be his own workout partner, Nashawn Garrett. I mean, it's this thing, but Vito really has rised up. He's going to have a good day, but it's his first time. That's how it was looked at. Semifinals, he runs into a world champion. Vito takes him down. Boom, outside single. He's got this great shot. Hits it on everybody. Changes, reaches for the far, and he laces him up. Next thing you know, it's 11-0. That match is done. He was not supposed to win that match. Right? This young guy, his first time there, that may or may not have a 56 year of college eligibility left. Technical Falls world champion. Makes the finals himself. They did everything they could do to take this match from Vito. I mean, this was amongst it, and I've heard horror stories, but I haven't seen them. I mean, I remember the Olympic Games when the Persian Panther took a guy down in the center of the mat, and they just wanted hold up two. That was the year, and you guys heard about it. They removed referees from wrestling with security. They removed them with force. They didn't prosecute them. They just sent them home to their countries. They took them from Olympic Village and banned them from life But they did the same thing with the boxing guys. The boxing guys were caught on camera taking money. This was bad. What they did, it was bad. But I didn't see a ton of this stuff. This was amongst as bad as I've seen. So Vito gets in there. It might as well have been a 9 and 10-year-old wrestling. The guy gets in on a single, and Vito tips him 3 times. One's this chest wrap, which is the new move, by the way. I mean, the chest wrap, particularly for these Cornell guys, this is the new scoring technique. Vito also waist tilts him. He's going for crotch lifts. Either way, 3 times for sure. Vito has 6 points for sure. But when the exchange ends, they don't put them on the board. Instead, the referees need to huddle up and talk. So when they're huddled up and talking, I'm trying to explain to my son, for sure, Vito has 6 points. The problem in wrestling, you can view it as a problem if you want, it's just the word I'm going to use. There's a situation where you can call 2-2 anytime you want. Anytime, and people can argue, but it happens so often, from little kids wrestling to the cadets to the it happens so often that once it's settled, no matter how agreed, you just let it go. But every situation, every front headlock that you expose a guy, you're exposing yourself. Every gut wrench where you expose a guy, you expose yourself. Greco-Roman, you pick a guy up, you throw him, you got feet going all through the air, you expose yourself. So a referee can call these things. But set that aside, Vito has 6 points. It's now a question of, is the opponent going to have 0 points, which is what I had him at? Is he going to have 2 points, which they at least want to give him 2 or they don't have in this break? Are they going to give him 4 points, which if you're going to give him 2, why not just call it 2-2 twice? Are they going to give him 6 and just tie this damn thing up, right? This is weird, and this is disappointing. So, all right, great. The match comes back, and we're wrestling. Everything's cool in the game. At one point, Vito gets on top, and Vito tips the guy. Now, again, when you go to tip a guy in freestyle, you are also tipping. But the guy does a 360. Vito tips. The guy does a 360, a full roll over his shoulders. 2 points for the guy. 2 points against Vito's on top. This guy does a somersault. This guy gets 2 points. They are trying to take this match from Vito. They're trying hard. So if you would have scored this the way I had it scored, and I'm pretty good at this, but it's about 9-0. This is not a close match. It's not even a hard match. The way they're scoring it, okay, we're tied up 7 apiece. It's crazy. Now, Vito takes him down right in the center of the mat where they can't screw him. Gets a couple of points. Now you got about 11 seconds left. The guy starts charging him. He's going to try to charge him and get him out of bounds. Well, wouldn't you know, he succeeded. And Vito fought it, but at this point, he is trying to beat the clock. That's true. Every wrestler in that situation would. That's true. If the referees see it, they have a job to do. But Vito fought it well enough. He stepped out of bounds. You got to give him a point. They then go caution and 1 out of nowhere. So this is with 11 seconds left. You've now got 5 seconds left on the board. They give him 1 for the push out, and then they give him a caution 1. The whole reason you come up with a push out rule is so that you no longer have to do caution 1. You can do both, but you haven't seen it anywhere else in the tournament. So they find a way to give this guy who is yet to score, who has barely touched a leg or mounted an offense, they find a way to give him 2 more points with almost no time left. And thank God in heaven above that Vito took him down 1 more time in the middle of the mat, or they would have found a way to crown that guy. So it ends up being this tight match. If you go read the score, you think, oh, what a back and forth battle. This thing must be great. It was a screw job. It wasn't a great match. It wasn't a close or hard match in the least. All right. Move on. Go up to 145 pounds. And, I mean, Joe is just so good. He really is. He does such a good job. To make this team, he has to go through Yanni. When he goes through Yanni, the whole world's watching. He's got to beat him twice in 1 day. Yanni's the top guy. Yanni sat out until the finals because he was in the world finals the previous year with the Iranian. So when Joe beats him, it's this big surprise. But just to remind you, and that's a big win, no doubt about it. But just to remind you, the previous time that they wrestled, Joe also beat him. The world just didn't see it. It was the 3rd place match at the Olympic trials. I'm just sharing for you. And it's very important that you know that, because to get to that 3rd place match, Joe had to beat Zane Rutherford. Very relevant. because I've heard a lot of things we should have sent Yanni. Joe wasn't ready. Well, Joe beat Yanni, and Joe beat Rutherford. Yanni was second in the world, and Rutherford is the world champion. I would just like to say about Joe, I know he didn't have the kind of day that he wants, but you got to draw, and you got some other stuff that goes into it. It was a great experience, and now let's move up and talk about Zane, because he is now the world champion. There's a couple of things on Zane that was most notable. First off, Zane comes off as a very nice guy. I believe that he is a nice guy. I believe that he's probably even a shy guy. I've never heard him say anything bad. I've never heard him use profanity. He just comes off as a really nice guy. If you watch him wrestle, he is the meanest guy on Team USA, and it is not a close second. Zane will snap your fingers for 2 points if he's already ahead by 9. He doesn't know any different. He is one of the roughest and tumblest guys, and he brings a physicality the other countries just simply aren't ready for. And there has never been training, regardless of what the experts want to tell you. The experts can tell you what they want. History is what's coming out of my mouth. Historical proof. There has never been better training than a collegiate room. If you were attached to a collegiate program, you were going to have a level of conditioning that the other guys just can't match. And that's just one of the things with Zane. So, but Zane's physicality, in addition to his skill, in addition to his experience, in addition to his brute force, is very relevant because this was at 70 kilograms, a non-world weight. So Zane will be pulling back down to 145 pounds. And I've never seen Zane look better physically at 70 kilograms. And what I'm talking about, the strength, the size. He has clearly changed his physiology. He has clearly put on lean mass. And I bring that to you because in 9 months, he's going to have cannibalized his body and come down. It's just something to keep your eye on. I mean, you want a storyline? We got a world champion that's about to enter the weight class. And you're going to have to decide, is that going to help him or is that going to hurt him? But it's fun and it's a talking point. But today definitely belongs to Zane. Not to mention he helped Team USA taking out Iran in the finals. We're in a 1-2 race right there. All right. Take a look at Marsteller. And I realize I'm skipping a weight class, but let's go up to 79 and just take a look at Marsteller. I loved it. I love the entire Marsteller story. I had a call a number of years ago from somebody in the inner circle of Chance Marsteller that said, Chael, I'm going to sit Chance down. I'm going to explain to him that this is not worth his time pursuing world and Olympic dreams. He's not going to get through Dake and he's not going to get through Burroughs. But if you'll help me and we can make some connections, I can fast track him in MMA. I'm going to tell him this. If I tell him this, is it true? Can you help me? Do you have those contacts and do you believe in Marsteller? And I said yes, and I didn't think we'd see him wrestle again. Not only have we seen him wrestle, we slowly saw him get better, right? And my first glimpse of this was actually overseas on Flow Wrestling when he ran into McFadden. But one thing on Marsteller, particularly in collegiate, he had a hard time doing the entire match. It's a long time out there, but he had a hard time. He'd get his points early, he'd run out clock. And it also became a little bit of the story on him in freestyle. And I just remember the specific McFadden match because he ran him down at the end. It wasn't the kick. Oh, Marsteller's got a gas tank all of a sudden. And that became the story. And even if you watched his best of 3 series with Burroughs, it's part of the story. He can go the entire time. And he looked awesome. He got some experience and had some tough guys. That's the story. You go up to David Taylor. David Taylor does not get credit. And he won't get credit. And my little comment on him here isn't going to do it for him. But if you do go look at David Taylor, there is nobody that is more dominant. How do you determine that? First off, you guys don't know the world. I don't mean that as an insult. Most people don't. The crowds are small. Right? You sell out the NCAA tournament. You'll sell out Border Brawl between Iowa and Minnesota. You're not going to sell out the World Championships, and people aren't going to watch from it. It's one of those things. And then you don't know who the guys are, and then find out who the guys are is hard when the Eastern Bloc is selling passports anyway. Right? Each country gets to send one guy. Well, except Russia, because they sold to Bahrain and they moved a guy to Kyrgyzstan. Whatever the situation is. So it gets a little bit tough. How do I follow a country? How do I follow their nationals? How do I even follow their process when they don't follow and they just buy a passport? Fine. What I'm attempting to make for you is when you don't know the world, one thing that you don't realize is those guys that get the bronze medal, okay? You see the finals match. You see Taylor win that. Those guys that get the bronze medal, Taylor kicked the you-know-what out of. destroyed, dominated, didn't give up a point, finished. And this has happened multiple years. This happened at the Olympic Games. The bronze medalists were on Taylor's side. That looked like heroes, and they're running around. They got the flag, and they should. It was a great moment. But if you back the tape up to the previous morning when David Taylor wrestled them, they looked like amateurs. And I don't know if Taylor will run into Yazdani again. I don't know. We'll see. Yazdani is great. There's other guys in Iran. And Iran is one of those countries where they have a process, but they will tell you ahead of time. We will pick the team. Generally and historically, we follow the process, but we don't have to. And there are strong rumors that Iran, who will absolutely be in medal contention for the team championship at the Olympics against the U.S. That's understanding the Russians are out. They can't represent a team. So it's just these two. And that match is paramount. And there is rumors that there's other young guys in Iran that while Yazdani beats them, they're going to give him a fresh look. So we'll see where that goes. But not only do you see Taylor handling Yazdani, he's now pinned him for a second time. This is an Olympic champion. So world and Olympic champion. David Taylor has pinned him for a second time. He's beaten him for a fifth time. He's destroying the next best thing. David Taylor, you saw what he did to Kakistan with an armbar and a half Nelson. Ran him right over the top instead of taking him. This guy just jumps to his back. And I'm not teasing the guy. I'm sure you saw that dominant. That guy teched the Russian 40 minutes before. This is how good David Taylor is. It's important you keep an eye on that. Because the belief is that Jordan Burroughs is going to cut down to 74 kilograms next year. The move is to move up to 86 kilograms. That's the move, and it's glaringly obvious. Jaden Cox is going to go up to 97 kilograms next year. The move is to come down to 86, and it's glaringly obvious. And we've got two guys that have done well with David Taylor. David Taylor stayed. Those two guys left. So it's one of these little bit confusing things where one of those is going to figure it out. So I'm just sharing with you, like, nothing is done. And also, when I talk about the greatness of David Taylor and the dominance of him, I believe that that was shown through Anthony Valencia, who's never gone 92 kilograms, popped in out of nowhere because he didn't like the result of the U.S. Open, dominates through the trials. He dominated through the World Championships to get the bronze. And he finished the guy for the third place match. He finished the Japanese guy. And that's also, he's at that weight class because he can't be at 86 because of David Taylor. Says a lot, right? So Valencia is going to have a decision to make next year too. And I believe that he is going to pull down to 86, the same as all of you do. But there's at least a conversation of going up to 97. I'm probably ahead of myself on that one. I'm just sharing for you. That is what's interesting about world weight. If Valencia had more success moving up a weight class, why wouldn't he just keep this and go up another weight class? Right? And there, you can answer that question. There's reasons why he wouldn't do that. I'm sharing for you that the conversation exists, right? When you have a guy as young as that. All right. Move up to 97, you got Kyle Snyder. Now, Kyle Snyder is going to end up with Sadulayev, the same as he has every year since 2017. And it's very well known. The difference this time is they're on the same side of the bracket. I like that. I like it. It's 3 matches in one day. Snyder's a conditioning machine. I think that that helps him. If Sadulayev goes out there and gut wrenches these guys, I have no idea why they can't defend his gut wrench. These guys are just terrible. A gut wrench defense. But anyway, if he doesn't do that and he has to burn some calories, I like that they're in the semifinals. I think it changes the atmosphere. So I get up and my wife makes breakfast and I keep my son home from school and we go sit down. We're going to watch this. It's in the semifinal. We go to watch it. Turns out that Schneider had lost in the quarters. And he lost to a guy who still has eligibility with the U20s. And the guy was a boy. You could see it. He doesn't look like he's had to shave too often. He doesn't quite have his strength yet. He wasn't overly big for the weight class. It was one of these things. You could tell you're dealing with a boy, but he got over on Snyder. You got to be kidding me. How'd that happen? I go back. My son and I we're devastated. We're devastated, one, because we really like Kyle Snyder. 2, this guy's going to draw into Sadulayev. He's not going to beat Sadulayev, which means Snyder's not going to get pulled back in, which means the United States doesn't qualify the weight class for the Olympics. It's a brutal process. The fact that you could have an Olympic champion, a multiple-time world champion, and that within the last quadrennium doesn't qualify your country is outrageous. But it's still the way that it is. So we sit down, we watch the match. We're not overly interested in it. This boy that's representing Bahrain, who just texted Snyder in the very first round. This boy from Bahrain is actually a Russian. In fact, he's teammates with Sadulayev because he couldn't make the team through Russia. He sold his passport. Now he's in a Bahrainian single. These guys know each other. There's nothing to see here is what I'm sharing for you. That's the way the story's being told. Wrong. He kicked Sadulayev's ass. I mean, Sadulayev's never had his ass kicked. Even when he had it beat, the one and only time, which was by Kyle Snyder, it was 6-5. He's never been whipped. This guy whips him. In fact, this guy, they go into the break at 5-0. And nobody, including the announcers, is talking about, oh my gosh, we could have the upset of the year. This may be a changing of the guard, because you got Sadulayev, this big man, they call him the tank. This is a boy. I don't say that as an insult. I say this guy's got all sorts of time left. He's going to get better just like Gable Stevenson, just by being alive. Right? You hit puberty once, but you actually hit it again as a male, in what they call man streak. You hit better just by hanging in there. So it's a very interesting thing, but nobody's talking like that. Like, even though the tank is down by 5, he's for sure going to come back. He comes back on everybody. So that's not what happened. This guy pushes him out of bounds. All of a sudden, it's not 5-0, it's 6-0, and time's running down. Well, with 2 minutes left in the match, it should have been a technical fall 10-0. Sadulayev is given a takedown. At no point in that match, and I don't mean for a second, I don't mean for control, I don't mean for a millisecond, never in that match, literal statement, did Sadulayev get on top of this guy. They have an exchange where the refs throw up 2 that wasn't 2. The guy comes out on top, he's taking him down. Well, the refs now have to say that's a reversal instead of a takedown. They have to, or they have to admit that they got it wrong, which is what they should have done. You got to understand, you take those 2 from Sadulayev that he never earned, and instead of giving that guy 1 for the reversal, you give him 2. The match is now done. So he teched Kyle Snyder, an Olympic champion, in less than 3 minutes. He teched Sadulayev, an Olympic champion, 1 hour later in 4. Now, they keep it going because the refs are trying to keep him in the match. And this guy's even trying to show Sadulayev respect. Like, he's not even attacking him. He's scoring points defensively. This is a beat. And this guy is just, turns out he's that special, right? Or that unknown, that unscouted. Maybe, right? I mean, there's different reasons why guys can go out there and get a jump and it never happens again. But I'm just sharing with you, it's happening right in front of us. Sadulayev just stops the match. And when he goes down and pretends that he's hurt, the trainers don't come running in. It's obvious that he is pretending that he's hurt. So then he gets up, and you still have to do the customary handshake even if you are hurt. So the chairman's like, what are you doing? Like, what do you want me to mark on the sheet? Like, he's giving him a look. Like, what are you doing? And Sadulayev shows him the stop sign and then points to his neck. And fair enough. Like fair enough. Many people that can't cope with the reality of what's happening would rather change the story. And the story, I don't want to get teched. He should have just teched me. The ref screwed him, but either way, let's just go home. Let me just go home. The reason that's relevant, I don't say it to give Sadulayev a hard time. I say that because if you injury default out of a tournament, you may not return. If you lose a match, you return. And in this case, it was the semis. He would have returned to the 3rd place match. Because he injury defaulted, he cannot return to the tournament. That's a rule from 1 year ago. I don't actually know that's the rule today. The announcers never said it. Nobody's written about it. Nobody has said what I've just said. And there's a chance that it's because they've changed the rule. But if they haven't changed the rule, okay, that means Sadulayev is not eligible to knock Schneider off. And nobody knows how those wrestlebacks work. Nobody knows who you got until you walk out there. But I'm just saying, eliminating Sadulayev ups the chances several-fold of Snyder coming through. And coming through does a couple of things. 1, it's good for team points. 2, it's good for Snyder. Be good to outplay Sadulayev. But 3, qualifies our country. That was not a belief anybody had when Snyder lost in the quarters. The belief was, oh crap, America's not qualified. And if America wasn't qualified, that would have given Jaden Cox the only excuse that he needed to drop down to David Taylor's weight. That's the move that Cox needs to do. His ego won't let him. He doesn't want to look like he's running from Schneider. It's just wrong. It's weird. Go down to 86 kilos. I'm just sharing for you. A lot happened, more than you might think happened, when this guy missed weight. Now, I apologize, when Sajalayev got rolled up here by the kid. So, okay. Keep my son home from school. Go watch Kyle Dake. It's Dake versus Sidakov, finally. And there was a disappointment yesterday that the Belarusian got knocked off by Greece because the Belarusian had been talking trash. We did want to see that rematch, but fair enough. It's the way a bracket works. Dake beat the guy that beat the guy. Off to the finals we go, and now we got Sidakov, which is what we showed up for in the first place. So my whole family's around. They decided to save him for the main event, the last match of the night, and it was awesome. And these two guys go to war. Now, we get struck first. When we go to the break, we as Americans have a problem, which is Dake has 1 point on the board from the passivity clock. And the reason that's a problem, you don't want the point at break. You want the other guy to have the point. So the next round, if history repeats itself, it comes to you. Now you got 1-1, but you win. Whoever scores last wins. So they're going to just give a point. Right, I hate the concept. We're going to give him a point. You can give a point and then give this guy a point. Not he earned, not he went and scored. You give a point and you give a point, but you ended the match. So we go to the break 1-0 Dake. That's not what it really is. It's one against us. All right, fine. These guys go to war. I mean, all hell breaks loose. And there has never been a tournament, or at least a world tournament, where Dake has had his leg touched more than he did this one. Now, a lot of guys won't touch Dake's leg. If you scouted him, he's going to score a lot of points when you grab his leg. In fact, you go back to the guy from Greece that beat the Belarusian the night before in the semifinals. Dake never took him down. That guy spent all the time on his leg. That's where Dake scored all his points. I'm just sharing with you, like, there's reasons guys don't touch Dake's legs very often, but I am making a fair observation. There's never been a tournament where more guys got in on Dake. All right. Well, Sidakov was doing something very unique. It was the right thing to do, but nobody else has done it, which is when he knocks Dake to his butt, split his legs. Everybody else would allow Dake to have a hook inside, both hooks inside, one inside and wrap it. He split his legs. And Dake's working and working and working. He's coming up and he's getting his leg back inside, but it still changed the position. He created some work, and it is where Sidakov was able to get both of those takedowns. Had he not split his legs initially, you're taking 4 points right off the board, and it was just a great match. It was so interesting that when the match was done, they did not bring them together. Time is up. The match is done. And the refs don't bring them together and raise a hand. There's a challenge by the U.S. Whoever wins that challenge wins the match. The bad news for the U.S. is there was nothing to challenge. I actually don't know what they did challenge. Perhaps they thought there was time left on the board, and perhaps they thought the final position was the takedown, of which it would be eligible for. It would be a screw job, but you could call that a takedown. You can't do either when time is up, and it was. But I'm still sharing with you how much fun it was. And when we go off the air here, you got 7-8 at the end of the match. If you challenge, which we did, and you lose the point. It's going to make it 9-7. Well, when the challenge is done, the screen shows 7-7 Dake's favor. And then it goes away just like that. So my son and I literally, yes, and they pull it away just like that. So now they're back in the middle, and they still don't raise their hand, even though it's decided. The referee knows the answer, but he doesn't. He's holding both guys' hands like this. He doesn't raise the hand. We don't know what's happening. So they then flash on the screen, challenge 1. We're the ones that issued it. Whoever wins this challenge wins the match. They flash challenge 1. We celebrate a second time. They raise the Russian's hand. So there's a little bit of a mix-up, and I don't say it to complain. As a fan, you couldn't have more fun. Even if there's an agony twice, it's still something. It's creating an emotion. So the final score of this match was 9-7, the Russian. Final score of the match when it ran out was 8-7, the Russian. They scored it the right way. I don't want that to be true. I want to complain. They scored it the right way. They would have given it, even if there was time left and they called that a takedown, we would have screwed the Russian. It was fair. It was a fair fight. Sidakov got him. We'll see you next year.